What they knew was that the rights of man are inherent, that our freedoms are God-given. Even JFK said, quote, "The rights of man come not from the will of the states, but from the hand of God." And we have come in our, and I'm going to use this term again because I like this term, in our naive arrogance, that we don't need God. But by rejecting God, we reject the provider of our freedoms. And one last thing, tell me where in the Constitution is separation of church and state? Do you know?
No, it's not in the Constitution.
It's not in the Constitution, exactly. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law regarding an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Basically, the states cannot set up a state-sanctioned religion, and they can't stop people from exercising any religion that they choose or not exercising whatever their will happens to be.
Right, and that was the point. The point of separation of church and state is having a state-sanctioned religion.
Exactly. And thank God that the founding fathers, that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, because that's the very reason that we have the freedoms that we have.
Right. Very good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Max.
Bye-bye.
Again, very good call. And Jonathan, and see, these are, again, this is not a political program, okay? So we want to be sure we don't get into politics too much here. But the idea of church and state, again, is having a state-sanctioned religion that runs the body. That's not what America was founded on. It was founded on freedom of religion, to give people the ability to express themselves freely in the public square, I might add. Okay? And we're seeing that the basis from which the founding fathers operated was a basis of godliness. And it wasn't just any God. You know, what we haven't seen in all of these things so far is we haven't seen pagan deities being referred to.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Frankly, we haven't seen Allah being referred to.
Nope.
We've received called the God of nature, okay, the God of divine providence, and then God's law as written in the Ten Commandments in the Bible.
So it's the God of the Bible.
That's the God they believed in. And look, the freedom here that we have says you don't have to believe that, but you ought to respect the fact that that's your history. And it's okay to not believe it. It's okay to not like it, because you have the freedom here to not like it. What a beautiful thing that is. Next picture, Jonathan, because we want to move along here. What do you see?
I see carving of the Ten Commandments on the doors of the U.S. Supreme Court.
So when you're getting ready to go into the courtroom for the United States Supreme Court, on the door, big carving of the tables of the law. It's unmistakable. They didn't want you to forget that the tables of the law were something that were important. The Supreme Court carved into the doorway walking in. That's what you see. Next one, Jonathan. What are you looking at here?
I see a lot of words.
Yeah.
This is an excerpt from Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural speech carved into the interior of the Lincoln Memorial.
Okay, and it reminds me somewhat of what Randall was saying. We're not going to read it, but what you see is in this part of the excerpt, there's 5 or 6 references to God.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, he freely spoke of God, and it wasn't looked upon as, oh, shame on you for saying that in the context of politics. His idea was to put God in place in terms of being the important thing in life. Okay, not something that is sort of of sub-importance. That's what this country was founded on. Like it or not, believe it or not, that's where it is. Jonathan, we have evidence. This evidence clearly shows that heartfelt trust, that legitimate, sober, life-directing trust in God that we spoke about earlier. That was over 200 years ago. Unfortunately, the world is different now.
Yes, it is.
It is. It is. Few, if any of us, are faced with the kind of sacrifices that these founders were faced with. For their pursuit of freedom cost them dearly. It cost them.
It cost them everything.
It did.
Their lives.
As a matter of fact, just before the break, let's read through a couple of these. I think we could do this before the break. And this is from excerpt from a Death and Freedom sermon by Dr. Neil Chadwick, founded on www.webadelic.com. These are a few examples from the little-known histories of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ship swept from the seas by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags.
Thomas McKean was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward.
At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted the British General Cornwallis had taken over the Nelson home for his headquarters. He quietly urged General George Washington to open fire. The home was destroyed, and Nelson died bankrupt.
Stop on that one just for a second. His home was taken over by the British.
He said, "Take it down."
That's right. He said, "Destroy my home." Because he believed in the freedom that he was fighting for, and as a result, he dies broke. Do we suffer that kind of sacrifice now? We don't. Next one.
Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife, and she died within a few months.
John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. The 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and his grist mill were laid to waste. For more than a year he lived in forests and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children vanished. A few weeks later he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates.
In addition, 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died, and 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War.
Does America now have such dedication and courage and vision as those men did then?
This is Jonathan and Rick with Christian Questions on News Talk 104.7 WXLM. Grab your Bibles, don't go away, we'll be right back.